World of Tanks without RNG. This is probably a sentence you would have never dreamed of hearing from somebody on YouTube or somebody from the devs or anything in any context, because RNG is as old as World of Tanks in that kind of sentence. Like, in the beginning, the game simply had its plus minus 25% RNG, and this on damage and on penetration. But now, several years have been gone. We have now the 9th birthday of World of Tanks, if I'm not mistaken. I personally play this game since 2011, and now we finally get the information that it's not only the first World of Tanks title, now we're talking about console, no, it's already the second title of World of Tanks, which was World of Tanks Blitz, which has tried to do some changes to the RNG in the game. Now, let's have a first quick look at what World of Tanks Blitz decided to do. 2 years ago, they decided to, well, say Lady Luck a little bit of a goodbye by changing the penetration values or penetration RNG from plus minus 25 to plus minus 15%. This is a decent small little change and can have a big impact into the game, making everything more consistent. So now let's take, for example, the Gorilla 15. The Gorilla 15 right now has 209 and up to 349 millimeters of penetration difference. Obviously, you will roll most likely in between the middle or closer to your average damage, but here and there you have some outskirts which go left and right and go haywire. And this can be very, very, very annoying. So now, with the World of Tanks Blitz RNG, this is going to change quite a bit, or used to be changed quite a bit. Now it can be 0.85 being the lowest, so you can see we have an increase by almost 30 millimeters of our penetration. And on the upper hand, it will be basically the same thing, so 279 times 1.15. So it's 320 is the max and not 349. So both changes. This is a pretty interesting change, but it didn't really affect the World of Tanks that much, or at least World of Tanks Blitz that much. Yes, I think it is a good idea, because even though your penetration RNG is not that noticeable, sometimes you're just like, why did it just bounce there when I have almost a 100% penetration rate? Then it hits you, oh right, my penetration can go balls deep low and simply bounce on a patch of armor you should always penetrate, basically. What we are going to talk about today is now the second World of Tanks title, World of Tanks console or Mercenaries, where they decided to do changes to the RNG. However, it was not brought in with an update and is ready to stay. It is an event. It's called the Loaded Dice event. And during this Loaded Dice event, they want to do changes to damage and the penetration mechanics. The first thing is they're going to change the damage from just one shell from plus minus 25% to plus minus 10%. Now this is a big difference. This makes basically the game a lot more predictable. When you see an enemy in front of you has 400 HP, for example, and you have a gun with 440 damage, you will be much more likely to kill this person than it is right now. Because just to keep this in mind, a 440 alpha gun still can roll all the way down to 330, but it can also roll all the way up to 550. With the new proposed RNG changes, we can do some calculations and have something like this for the max alpha with being 484, so that is even below 500, which is huge if you think about it. But it can go also as low as 396. So killing a 400 HP target with a 440 alpha gun will be much, 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 much more reliable. This is also will have a huge impact to high alpha guns like the Jagdpanzer E100s and even the gun of the FV. But now let's just focus on the Jagdpanzer E100 because he usually tends to just shoot AP or heat rounds which have a fixed damage and not have such huge priority like HE. Now, the Jagdpanzer E100 can go all the way down to 787 and all the way up to 1313. Both values are on itself ridiculous. This is also something which is actually very annoying when you play high caliber guns, because you have such huge priority, because you have a huge number already, and now you are bloating it by plus minus 25. This makes these numbers even huger and the gap even bigger. This is also something which I criticized a lot during the first iteration of the sandbox server. With the new RNG which is being proposed on the on the loaded dice event, you are going to have a max damage of 1155, which is, well, it's basically just 5 damage more than what an FV has as standard. And your lowest possible roll is 0.9, is 945. So you can be certain that you always will kill an 800 HP target. Excuse me, a 900 HP target. Because this is sometimes something which will screw you up when you play the Jag Panzer 100. And it is very, very, very annoying when you have a 21-second reload time now, because of that get an additional 2 shots by the enemy, or even die, or even lose the game. But the other thing is, and again, World of Tanks Without RNG, is that in the loaded dice event, they are going to abolish penetration RNG. And this is something incredible bold. And I have to say, chapeau to the World of Tanks console devs for actually trying this. I heard a lot of good things, but I also heard a lot of bad things about them. But this is something I have to say, good on them for making this an event on the live server, under live circumstances. And again, here we can see penetration, plus minus 25% variability removed from penetration. A round's penetration value is its displayed value and will no longer have a range applied. If a round's penetration value is 150 millimeters, it will always penetrate 150 millimeters worth of armor. This is huge. And I am even skeptical about this change. Because now let's just again take our Jag Panzer 100 as an example. During my free marks back in the days, where I played a lot of Jag Panzer 100, hence why I have 1,600 games in it. When I was fighting against an E100, I was always certain to load heat rounds, because quite simply, I only had a 60% chance of penetrating the turret. And when you have a 21-second reload time, this is very long. Like, this is incredible long. And you're always like, if you miss the shot or bounce this shot, it will hurt, because the E100 on the other side will most likely always reload heat rounds. And if he loads heat rounds, he has easy going on penetrating you. Now, with those changes to the RNG, the penetration RNG, the E100 has to be incredibly careful on what he's doing, because his whole turret front will be penetrable. It will always be a penning hit, as long as the E100 is going to look at the Jag Panzer 100. Again, I see this is a double-edged sword. Not only makes it the tanks incredibly more reliable to use, and it's something like what we have in World of Warships, where you also have just one fixed penetrating value, as far as I know, and you even have a lot more overmatch in World of Warships. It makes skilled players and if you're playing the game a lot and you have experience in it, it makes the game much, much more predictable. And this can help making this game a lot more competitive, because sometimes too much RNG, which we have now, can make competitive gaming dull and boring, because sometimes, or a lot of the times, you just have to say, oh well, it wasn't skill. For example, if I get penetrated in a Jag Panzer E100's casemate by a E100, which was shooting AP rounds, and I have around 270 to almost 300 millimeters of effective armor, I don't really see this as being outplayed. I'm just like, well, congratulations, you got lucky. Wow, thanks for now losing me the game because of that luck. So it feels bad. Sure, it can feel great when it happens to you as well. This is again the double-edged part of the sword, because sometimes you just win because you got this edge of a lucky bounce. And again, I don't know what would be better. However, my personal scale tips towards giving it still a slight RNG on penetration, but make it probably 10% or 15%. Just not simply completely abolish it. However, World of Tanks PC is still working on the sandbox server, right? And I think there is a huge potential wargaming can do. I think it would be a great idea and a great addition if World of Tanks would think about giving each different ammunition type its own RNG. So for example, if you want high damage numbers and having to roll the dice more often, I would say AP would have around 25 plus minus, like how it is right now. Maybe say that sabot shells, which have no explosive content, for example, they're just a metal spear. They are much more reliable because they always have the same filling. They're always the same, so we probably have just like plus minus 15% RNG or 20%. I don't know, but they do less damage. And lastly, you have heat rounds. Heat rounds are basically just an incomposed chemical reaction. So why not say that heat rounds have the least amount of RNG, probably around 10% on penetration, but also the lowest amount of damage, probably around, when having even 100, it will probably have just 500 damage, who knows, as an average damage. That would be, in my opinion, an incredible way to balance this game. Because then you can say, yes, AP rounds are highest damage, but have the highest roll the dice. And if you want to be more careful and more thoughtful, you can go for heat rounds, for example, if your tank has them, obviously, and just use heat rounds and be more confident with those. But then again, it could make the game a lot more complicated. I think, in closure, this change the World of Tanks console team is, again, putting forward is huge and interesting. I would welcome the damage RNG changes to the World of Tanks game, and I would welcome the penetration RNG changes from World of Tanks Blitz. In my opinion, this would be the best of both worlds. I think that the damage RNG has a lot bigger impact than the penetration RNG right now. So I think making the RNG less harsh on damage would be much more beneficial to the game than being less harsh on the penetration RNG. However, just with this change, it won't make a World of Tanks PC the best game ever. There are a lot more facets or sides to this loaded dice than just one, okay? World of Tanks has a huge, its depth is big, basically, that's what I want to say. And its problems are scattered around. One of the biggest problems, in my opinion, is still the lack of a proper crew skill system. But this is a whole different story I would like to touch. And if you want to listen to that story, I would suggest to just subscribe to my channel. And now I would really love to know what you think about this loaded dice event by the World of Tanks console players. Also, something I kind of just glossed over it is that they also changed the RNG to burning. The damage per burn, second of burn will no longer vary and will provide a more consistent burn. The length of a burn will continue to vary and each vehicle will have its own burn damage per second factor. I have to say this is a not big change or important change because burning in World of Tanks is still a rare occasion, same as a Amarak explosion. So not entirely sure what I should think about this. I guess less RNG on that is great, but then again I'm like, when you're changing the burn RNG, then you probably have to change the saving throws for the fuel tanks, something. Like that if you hit the fuel tanks, maybe pump up their HP, but remove the saving throw. What I mean with saving throw basically is that when you hit a module, for example the fuel tanks, as far as I know you have a 45% chance of damaging it. So not every shot will make damage to the module. World of Tanks wiki, what is it? Module damage. I'm sorry, I didn't really thought about talking about this, but when we are already here, I think it's a pretty decent thing to do. I just have to quickly find the thing I just want to show. Sneeze. 10 out of 10 prepared, right? 10 out of 10 prepared. It should be right about below here. There we go. The saving throws. Again, when a module or a crew is hit, usually the damage is not immediately applied. So when you get in your ammo rack, you have a 27% chance that those modules or the ammo rack won't get damaged, which is great, but then again, sometimes you just get blown up. So, for example, in my second game in the Object 279, I got hit in the front by Jack Panzer Ian Hunt, which penetrated, and he had this 27% luck of immediately blowing me up, full HP. Because, quite simply, his module damage was high enough to finish me off. And this is also why you will always always detrack somebody in the frontal road wheel when your caliber, or rather your module damage, is big enough. Not knowing what I'm talking about, module damage is basically a hidden stat, a hidden soft stat basically. For example, the E100's module damage is 203. So, when we look at the engine health of a E100, you will see that it would need 2 hits by the E100 to damage this module. That is kind of weird if you think about it, but then again, you have for the engine a 45% chance to damage this module. So in theory, you would, like without RNG, in theory you would need 2 shots, but with this RNG, I think you will have all the way up to 4 shots if you're getting unlucky, or even more, obviously. And then we can take as another example, the example I just talked about, the 279 getting blown up by a Jack Panzer E100. Just have to find the youuuu. That was not the youuuu. There we go. The youuuu has a module damage of 228, which is a lot. The 279's ammo rack, however, has only 210 HP, and you can see, yes, the Jack Panzer E100 has more damage for the ammo rack when it's full HP than anything else. So, as soon as a Jack Panzer E100 gets lucky enough of hitting it and getting this 27% RNG, it is kaboom, and the Object 279 is done and dusted. And this is also why a E100 in theory should never be able to one-shot a 279's ammo rack. But then again, it's something I would also like to test, so keep up with that. Thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know in the comment section below what you think about the loaded dice event. Do you like the idea? Do you dislike it? And yeah, thank you so much. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't dislike, I am always up for some feedback. And I'll talk to you all later in a different video. Cheers.